I never thought my life would come to this. Standing in the wreckage of a marriage I didn't choose, my heart pounding with secrets I can't confess. I'm Evelyn, trapped in a world of silence with a husband who feels like a stranger, craving a spark of something real to pull me out of this suffocating void. At a dazzling company party, under the glow of chandeliers and the haze of champagne, I found myself drawn to forbidden attention, teetering on the edge of a decision that could shatter everything. But when I looked into my husband's cold, distant eyes across the room, I felt something snap inside me. And what happened next changed everything in a way I never saw coming. There's a certain weight to silence, isn't there? Not the kind you find in a peaceful moment, but the kind that presses down on you, heavy as a stone, when you're lying awake at night in a bed that feels too big for just two people. My name is Evelyn, and I'm 24 years old, though sometimes I feel like I've lived a lifetime already. I've been married to Caleb since I was 14, a union stitched together by family expectations in a small, tight-knit town where tradition often outweighs choice. Back then, I didn't question it. I didn't know I could. I just nodded, smiled, and stepped into a life that was already mapped out for me, like slipping into a dress that never quite fit, but you wear anyway because it's all you've got. Life in that town taught me to keep my head down, to work hard, to make do. And I did. I clawed my way out of the shadow of that early marriage and built something for myself. A career. A purpose. I'm an administrative assistant at a marketing firm that's been climbing the ranks fast, a place buzzing with energy and ambition. My boss, Marcus, is the kind of man who fills a room just by walking into it. He's in his late 30s, all sharp suits and sharper words, with a drive that's pushed the company to heights I didn't think possible when I first started. I admire him, maybe more than I should, for the way he commands attention, without even trying. It's a stark contrast to my life at home, where attention feels like a currency I can't afford. Caleb, my husband, is 28 now, a mechanic with hands stained by grease, and a heart that's grown colder with each passing year. We don't talk much anymore. Not about the big things, not about the small ones. There's just this void between us, a chasm I don't know how to cross. I used to think I could fix it, that if I tried hard enough, I could bring back the boy who used to smile at me across the dinner table. But that boy is gone, and I'm left with a man who feels more like a stranger than a partner. It's lonely, this life of mine, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't crave something more. Some flicker of warmth, some spark of validation to remind me I'm still here, still worth seeing. I spend my days buried in schedules and emails at the firm, trying to keep up with the pace Marcus sets. But lately, my mind's been drifting to the upcoming company party. It's a big deal, a celebration of a financial milestone that's got everyone buzzing. We've hit numbers that seemed impossible just a year ago, and Marcus insisted on throwing an event to match the achievement. Glitz, glamour, the works. I wasn't sure if Caleb would even want to come. Why would he? We barely exchange more than a few words most days, but when I remember stepping into the ballroom of that downtown hotel, my breath catching just a little at the sheer extravagance of it all. Marcus had gone all out to celebrate the company tripling its revenue, and the place was a vision of opulence. Glittering chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls of light, casting a warm golden glow over everything. The air was alive with the delicate clink of champagne glasses, the murmur of excited voices, and the smooth, upbeat rhythm of a jazz band tucked into the corner, their notes weaving through the crowd like a playful breeze. Employees and their +1s filled the space, a sea of elegant suits and shimmering gowns, everyone looking like they'd stepped out of a dream. I'd splurged on a deep blue dress for the occasion, the fabric hugging me in a way that made me feel a flicker of confidence, even if my nerves were buzzing beneath the surface. Caleb, though, stood beside me in a stiff, ill-fitting suit, his shoulders hunched like he'd rather be anywhere else. He looked so out of place among the polished crowd, and I could feel the distance between us growing wider with every passing second. I tried to pull him into the moment, pointing out the intricate floral arrangements on every table, the way the light danced off the crystal glassware, hoping to spark even a tiny bit of wonder in him. "Isn't this incredible?" I asked, my voice brighter than I felt. He barely glanced up from his phone, muttering a flat, "Yeah," before his eyes dropped back to the screen. I swallowed the disappointment and nudged him toward the dance floor as the band struck up a lively tune. "Come on, let's dance." Just one song, but he shook his head, not even meeting my gaze, grumbling something about not being in the mood. That familiar pang of loneliness stabbed at me, sharp and cold, but I pushed it down, plastering on a smile. I wasn't going to let his indifference ruin this night for me, not when I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. Just then, Marcus appeared through the crowd, his presence as commanding as ever. He was all smiles and effortless charm, his tailored suit fitting him like it was made to show off every sharp angle of his frame. His energy was magnetic, pulling everyone's attention without even trying, and I couldn't help but straighten up a little as he approached. "Evelyn, you look stunning tonight," he said, his voice warm, his eyes lingering on mine just a fraction longer than necessary. I felt a flush creep up my neck, but I brushed it off as friendliness, nothing more. "Thanks, Marcus. This party is unreal. You've outdone yourself." He grinned, then turned to Caleb, extending a hand with a firm, confident grip. "Good to see you, man." "Glad you could make it." Caleb nodded, barely engaging, his handshake limp in return. I cringed inwardly, wishing he'd at least pretend to care, but Marcus didn't seem fazed. As the night wore on, the ballroom seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the energy of the party swelling to a fever pitch. The jazz band played on, their melodies weaving through the laughter and chatter, while the champagne flowed like a river, loosening tongues and inhibitions alike. I found myself standing near the bar, the cool edge of the counter pressing into my back as I sipped on a glass of something bubbly, trying to shake off the lingering sting of Caleb's disinterest. He'd wandered off somewhere, probably to sulk in a corner with his phone, leaving me to navigate this glittering world alone. I scanned the crowd, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, but he was nowhere in sight. That's when Marcus stumbled over to me, his tie loosened, hanging crooked around his neck, and his usually sharp eyes glassy from one too many drinks. He leaned in a little too close, the scent of whiskey on his breath mixing with the faint musk of his cologne. "Evelyn," he slurred, his voice low and rough. "You know, you're the heart of this office. We'd be lost without you. And honestly, you deserve so much better than what you've got." His words hit me like a punch, too personal, too raw, and I felt my cheeks flush as I let out a nervous laugh, trying to brush it off. "Thanks, Marcus, but I'm fine, really," I mumbled, my voice shaky. But then his hand found my waist, his fingers pressing into the fabric of my dress, pulling me just a fraction closer. My heart raced, a chaotic mix of discomfort and something else, something dangerous, a strange thrill I hadn't felt in years. I glanced around, desperate for a lifeline, searching for Caleb in the sea of faces. And there he was, across the room, his eyes locked on us. But his face, it was blank, emotionless, like he was watching a scene from a movie he didn't care about. He didn't move, didn't come over, just turned back to his drink as if I didn't exist. That hurt more than Marcus's touch ever could. It cut deep, slicing through years of built-up resentment, and I felt something snap inside me. Anger surged first, hot and bitter, at Caleb's apathy, at the way he could just stand there and let this happen without a flicker of concern. Then came the loneliness, a hollow ache that had been my constant companion for far too long, whispering that I'd been invisible for years. And beneath it all, a reckless, desperate need to feel wanted, to feel seen, even if just for a moment. I didn't pull away from Marcus. I couldn't. Instead, I let him guide me, his hand still on my waist, toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the prying eyes of the crowd. His words were slurred, but laced with a seductive edge, promises of things I hadn't dared to dream of in forever. I knew I was teetering on the edge of something I shouldn't cross, but the weight of Caleb's indifference pushed me forward. Tara and Liam, two of my closer colleagues, appeared out of the throng, their expressions curious but charged with something darker, something hungry. They'd sensed the shift in the air, the unspoken tension, and instead of pulling me back, Their presence only fueled the fire. Tara's sly smile, Liam's knowing glance. It felt both dangerous and exhilarating, like stepping into a storm and daring it to strike. The four of us slipped away from the main ballroom, finding a private room just off the main area, the door clicking shut behind us with a finality that made my stomach twist. The noise of the party dulled to a distant hum, and in that small, dimly lit space, I let myself get swept up in their attention. I crossed a line I never thought I would, giving in to the haze of anger and desperation that had been building inside me for years. It wasn't just about Marcus, or Tara, or Liam. It was about reclaiming something, anything, from a life that had left me hollow. What unfolded there, in the shadows of that room, was a tangle of forbidden closeness. As I slipped back into the ballroom, the weight of what had just happened clung to me like a second skin. My hands trembled as I smoothed the deep blue fabric of my dress, trying to erase any evidence of my indiscretion. I took a deep breath, forcing my face into a mask of calm, but my heart was a wild drum in my chest, pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it over the jazz band's relentless rhythm. The chandeliers still glittered above, casting their golden light over the crowd, but now that light felt harsh, like a spotlight searching for my guilt. I scanned the room, my eyes darting from face to face, terrified that someone had noticed my absence, that someone had seen us slip away into that private space where boundaries had blurred into something I couldn't take back. I spotted Caleb at the bar, exactly where I'd last seen him, hunched over another drink, his broad shoulders tense under that ill-fitting suit. My stomach twisted as I approached, each step heavier than the last. His eyes flicked up to meet mine, and I froze under the weight of his stare. Cold, unreadable, like a wall of ice I couldn't see through. Did he know? Had he seen something, sensed something in the way I'd been gone too long? My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Maybe someone had whispered to him, dropped a hint about where I'd been. Or maybe it was just my paranoia, gnawing at me, making every shadow in the room feel like a threat. I forced a smile, though it felt brittle on my lips, and sidled up beside him. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, my voice a little too high, a little too eager to seem normal. "Ready to head home soon?" He didn't answer right away. Just took a slow sip of his drink, the glass clinking against the bar as he set it down with deliberate care. "Maybe," he muttered, his tone clipped, sharp enough to cut through the noise around us. That single word hung in the air, heavy with something unspoken, and I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. There was a storm brewing behind his silence. I could sense it, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face whatever was coming. I opened my mouth to say something else, anything to fill the void, but the words caught in my throat as I caught sight of Marcus across the room. He was back in the crowd, laughing with Tara and Liam as if nothing had happened, as if we hadn't just shared a moment that could unravel everything. But then Marcus's gaze shifted, locking onto mine, and a smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. Knowing, taunting, like he held a secret he could wield at any moment. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat, and I quickly looked away, focusing on the amber liquid in Caleb's glass instead. The atmosphere in the ballroom felt suffocating now, the once inviting buzz of the party turning into a cacophony that pressed against my skull. The music blared too loud, each note from the jazz band grating on my nerves like a scream. The lights, so enchanting earlier, now burned my eyes, too bright, too revealing, as if they were trying to expose every hidden thought I was desperately trying to bury. Every glance from a coworker, every casual nod or smile, felt like an accusation. Were they watching me? Did they know? I could feel the weight of imaginary eyes boring into me, stripping away the facade I was struggling to maintain. My fingers tightened around the stem of a champagne glass I'd picked up just to have something to hold, something to anchor me, but even that felt fragile, like it might shatter under the pressure of my grip. Inside, I was a mess of conflicting emotions, torn apart by the choices I'd made in that dimly lit room. Guilt clawed at me, sharp and relentless, for betraying Caleb, for stepping over a line I'd always told myself I'd never cross. I'd let myself get swept up in a moment of weakness, seeking something I'd been starved of for so long, and now the shame of it was a heavy chain around my... The ride home from the party was a suffocating kind of quiet, the kind that feels like it's choking the life out of you, word by word, breath by breath. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the blur of streetlights, my hands folded tightly in my lap to keep them from trembling. Caleb drove with his jaw set hard, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, not a single word passing between us. Every so often, I'd steal a glance at him, trying to read the storm I knew was brewing behind those dark, unreadable eyes. But his face gave nothing away. My mind was a whirlwind, replaying every moment of the night, every choice, every misstep, every second I'd let myself fall into something I couldn't undo. The weight of it sat heavy in my chest, a stone I couldn't dislodge, and I wondered if he could feel it too, if he could sense the fracture that had split us open long before tonight. When we finally stepped into our small apartment, the dim glow of a single lamp cast long shadows across the room, making the space feel even smaller, more oppressive. The air was stale, thick with the unspoken, and I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, a constant, irritating drone that seemed to mock the silence between us. We moved like ghosts, shedding our coats, avoiding each other's gaze, until we ended up on opposite ends of the old couch. The cushions sagged beneath me, creaking with every slight shift of my weight, a sound that felt louder than it should have in the stillness. I stared at the scuffed coffee table, at the empty space where we used to keep framed photos of happier times, now long gone. Caleb sat with his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together, fingers tightening until I could see the strain in his knuckles, like he was holding himself back from something. Maybe anger, maybe pain. I couldn't tell. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his voice low, cutting through the quiet like a blade. "So, did you enjoy the party?" The sarcasm dripped from every word, bitter and sharp, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My heart started to race, a frantic rhythm I couldn't control, as I tried to gauge how much he knew, how much he'd seen. I opened my mouth to respond, to throw out some casual lie, but nothing came. I just sat there, pinned under the weight of his stare, feeling like a cornered animal with nowhere to run. Then he leaned back, his eyes narrowing, and dropped the truth like a bomb. "I saw you, Evelyn. Saw you slip away with Marcus and the others. Saw the way you looked when you came back. Like you'd been somewhere you shouldn't have been." His voice didn't rise, didn't crack with rage like I expected. It was eerily calm, almost detached, and that scared me more than any shouting could have. He continued, each word measured, precise, slicing into me deeper than I thought possible. "I've known for years you've been unhappy. I'm not blind, but I never thought you'd go this far. Never thought you'd do something like this just to get back at me." The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, and I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes before I could stop them. My chest tightened, a sob building there, and then it broke free, spilling out in a rush of raw, ugly emotion. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The dam I'd built around my guilt, my anger, my pain, it shattered and everything came pouring out. "I did it, okay?" I choked out, my voice trembling, tears streaming down my face as I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in what felt like forever. "I crossed a line tonight, and I'm sorry, Caleb. I'm so sorry. But I've felt invisible for years. You've been so distant, so cold, like I don't even exist to you anymore. I wanted to hurt you, to make you feel even a fraction of the loneliness I felt every single day. I wanted to feel something, anything, other than this endless emptiness. And I know that doesn't make it right, but I was drowning, Caleb. I was drowning, and I didn't know how to come up for air." My words tumbled out, raw and jagged, each one cutting me as much as it must have cut him. I wiped at my eyes, the tears smearing across my cheeks, but they kept coming, a flood I couldn't stop. I waited for him to yell, to lash out, to give me the fight I thought I deserved. But he didn't. He just sat there, his face a mask of something I couldn't read. Hurt, maybe, or resignation. After a long, heavy pause, he spoke again, his voice quieter now, almost hollow. I guess we've both been drowning, Evelyn. Just in different ways. Days have passed since that night, and the silence between us has only grown thicker, more suffocating. Caleb and I move through our apartment like shadows, passing each other in the narrow hallway without a word, our eyes never meeting. I catch glimpses of him sometimes, out of the corner of my eye. His broad shoulders hunched over the sink as he washes a single plate, or the way he lingers by the door before leaving for work, as if he's waiting for something that never comes. The space where we used to share meals at the kitchen table is empty now, just a barren stretch of wood collecting dust. I can't even remember the last time we sat there together, the clink of forks against plates filling the air. Now, I eat standing up by the counter, if I eat at all, while he grabs something on his way out. It's like we're strangers living under the same roof, bound by a history we can't escape but can't reclaim either. I've taken a leave of absence from work, unable to face Marcus or anyone else at the firm. Every time I think about stepping into that office, my chest tightens, and I see his smirk from across the ballroom, that knowing look that still haunts me in the quiet moments. I can't bear the thought of running into Tara or Liam either, their sly glances or whispered words cutting through whatever fragile composure I've managed to scrape together. The memory of that night plays on a loop in my mind, a relentless reel of bad choices and bitter consequences. I can still feel the weight of their attention in that dimly lit room, the way I let myself get lost in a moment of reckless abandon, chasing a fleeting sense of being wanted. It wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a betrayal, not just of Caleb, but of who I thought I was. And that's the part that keeps me awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I let myself fall so far. Yesterday, Caleb and I finally sat down to talk, not on the couch this time, but at that empty kitchen table, the space between us feeling like an ocean. There was no anger in his voice, no venom, just a tired kind of clarity that hurt more than any shouting match could have. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the lines etched deeper into his face, the weariness in his eyes that mirrored my own. "We can't keep doing this, Evelyn," he said, his hands folded in front of him, steady in a way I envied. "Staying together, it's just going to tear us apart even more. We're not fixing anything by pretending we can go back to how things were." I nodded, my throat tight, because I knew he was right. There was no dramatic reconciliation waiting for us, no bitter fight to hash out old wounds. Just this quiet, mutual understanding that we've both been broken by a life we didn't choose, a marriage that was thrust upon us before we even knew who we were. "I think it's best if we separate," he added, and I felt a pang of loss, sharp and cold, even though I'd seen it coming. I agreed, my voice barely above a whisper, because what else was there to say? We'd run out of words long before that night at the party. So, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.